I'm your host, Karim Abu Zaid, and we come live today with another edition of Ask Imam Karim live show. And today, or tonight, or this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, or this night, based on your time zone, we have a very special and dear guest. That is Dr. Bilal Philips, all the way from Addis Ababa, where he is right now doing some work. Inshallah, we will bring in Dr. Bilal momentarily into the broadcast as we welcome all of you, inshallah. Please go ahead and share and let people know about this broadcast. We didn't have enough time promoted because of the need to address the subject, which is the murder of George Floyd and the aftermath, the discrimination, the also the looting, and all of these issues. And no one better than Dr. Bilal Philips, who is actually live with us right now. Let me bring him in, and we welcome you, Dr. Bilal. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing?
Here.
How's it going, Abu Amin?
Alhamdulillah.
How's it going?
Alhamdulillah. Barakallah feek.
Family is doing okay?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. We're here in Ethiopia, inshallah.
So what's happening there?
Well, it's, they have the lockdown. They've got a couple of more months ahead to complete it. Otherwise, alhamdulillah, the situation is fine. I'm just staying at home doing daily programs on Facebook. I'm doing a class there on the 99 names.
MashaAllah.
And alhamdulillah, just making
in a local masjid, in a local masjid or virtual?
No, this is online. Yeah,
online
from my Facebook page live.
Alhamdulillah.
People, that's daily, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Dr. Bilal, I know it's a little bit late for you there, and we want to get right to the subject. I'm sure you're aware of what happened in Minneapolis a couple of weeks back. A white, and again I'm using these racial just to bring things into perspective, officer sat on an African American by the name of George Floyd for almost 10 minutes with no reason. He sat on his neck. We can tell from the video that he was not giving him a hard time. And George Floyd himself was calling, the need to breathe, and he is dying, and all of these indications of the danger of the way that the officer was sitting. And we can tell from the way that he was sitting that he was having his hand in his pocket. And first of all, I had a very hard time, Dr. Phillips, myself, to watch that video. How did you feel about such a clip, which was almost 10 minutes, 8 and above? What is your take on this video?
Well, of course, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam wa rasulillah. It was something terrible. It was something evil. It's very saddening that in 2020, this is going on. But it's basically only one in a series. I mean, there were others killed in similar fashions. We had the individual who was running. I've forgotten what his name is. He was shot dead, by two white Americans. They shot him dead. They claimed that he was trying to steal materials from some place. It turns out that there is no basis for it. Before that, there were others, and this is an ongoing thing. When you see statistics which show that for a young black male in America, the major cause of death is police shootings. that tells you that you're living in a situation where it is not a healthy situation psychologically. So many people have expressed. I've watched CNN and this, have expressed, how if you are driving a car and a police stops you, then you don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen next. As a black person, you're afraid to even reach in your pocket and take out whatever they're asking for. You get shot and they say, well, he was reaching for something.
Right.
I mean, it's just so much of that still, present, and it's something which it's very saddening, but it is the nature, they say, the nature of the beast.
Allah.
What America has become, is a free hand given to policemen, very little, checking on what happens when, people get killed. The policeman's always right. I mean, they will go out of their way to ensure and to protect him, closing the wagons, as they say. They will look after their own. They make sure that they're taken care of to avoid this. So you look at the number of policemen who have been convicted of murdering, citizens, whether black, white, or anybody else. It's so low when we compare it to the number of people who are being killed that, it's really a travesty of justice.
No.
So there's no doubt that the situation is not good. And it's not surprising that the response has been so great. Actually, I lived through the 60s. I was a teenager back in the 60s.
You don't look that old. You don't look that old, so.
But, so, I mean, I was there. I mean, I know it. I had gone to the States. I was in the States. And so I've been through that period already, and I've seen it, and, of course, the destruction, the looting, the rioting, and all of that, it's something which, of course, is not good. It's not healthy. A lot of people are suffering because of it, etc. But the point is that, America was born with a riot. The Boston Tea Party that they speak about, it was a riot. It was a protest. That's how America was born. So this has been a tradition. As one of the people from the 60s said, violence is as American cherry pie.
Allahu Akbar. That's a profound way to express it, But talking about this, we know the rulings regarding protest and demonstrations. They come from jurists or scholars who live in a Muslim world. We know that there are some scholars who, especially the scholars who come from the Arabia, they, Ta'atul Amir and Waliul Amr and all of this, they say no, and we live in America here, and we have this $1 million questions, which we don't have the $1 million, but we hope that you can answer. What is the ruling on protest exclusive to America, to the West? I'm not talking about, Muslim countries, and we can discuss. I'm talking about living here. This is a lawful means to enjoying good and forbid evil. Can you give us your insight on this? Because there are conflicting fatwas on this subject, please.
Yeah, as you said, Dr. Karim, as you have said, there is a difference between a Muslim state where revolt and rebellion is rejected completely, and what leads to rebellion, would also be also rejected, and a state like the United States and in countries in the West which permit protest as a means of expressing one's opinion. So it's because of the fact that it is legal in the country to do so. And it's not legal to burn and to loot and all of this. Nobody's saying that's legal. What we're talking about is marching in the streets with placards, expressing with microphones, expressing one's displeasure or one's opinion, etc., etc. This has been going on in America, since its inception. So this is not for Muslims to be a part of this, to be engaged in it, is legitimate in the North American context, But of course, as I said, with the reservation that, they be a part of those who also help to stop the looting and all this if it starts to happen, that is something which is coming along with it each time. So one has to be prepared to be a part of the solution and not be just a part of the problem.
Right.
Because to stand back silently while people go ahead or to move away and let them go ahead and commit crimes, then okay, you now carry the burden of having not prevented what you could have.
Absolutely. Dr. Bilal, the subject is related to race and colors and all of this. I really want to discuss this in our Islamic domain first. I testify, I live in America, that we do have race issues in our Islamic centers, in our own Muslim communities. Reverts are not given their due right. There is a cultural divide, not religious divide. So many times I hear it from reverts who say, we thought that we found our family, and there is that split. They feel that border is placed between them and the Arabic speaking, the Urdu speaking. How can we as imams address this issue in our lectures, in our talks? And then as members of the community, how can we address this issue before we go to our larger community and talk about race and how can we deal with it and how Islam can offer solutions?
Well, I think that, what has happened is that the feelings of tribalism, nationalism, racism, which is just an expression of this, these feelings are from Satan, first and foremost, who was the first to say, Ana khayrun minhu, I'm better than him.
No.
He is the leader of this whole tribalism, racism, nationalism, and those things that are connected with it, which Islam opposed tooth and nail. Prophet Muhammad spoke about it on his last Hajj, and he spoke about it in so many occasions where it popped its head up. Abu Dhar calls Bilal, Yabna Sauda. And Prophet Anta rajulun fika al-jahiliyyah. For Abu Dhar, that was just such a massive blow. He dropped on the ground, put his head on the ground, and refused to lift his head up till Bilal walked over it. So, and Abu Dhar is Abu Dhar. Abu Dhar is known as, he is if there is such a thing as a true Islamic Sufi, that was him. He was, known to just not try to hold anything of this dunya. But, that element was there. This is something they inherited, from generations, that people had this attitude. So this doesn't go away just simply because we say we're Muslims. So the point is that as imams, etc., this has to be, a part of the educational process. That people have to go through this and to understand it and to build relationships. And it's the same thing when I was imam there in Toronto for 1 year back in 2012, right? 2012. I could see these elements there, and whether it was Somalis complaining about others, or it was others complaining about Somalis, or so these elements were there, as well as black converts, etc., complaining, because it's just this is the world we live in now, a world which has been dominated by Europe. When Europe gained control over the rest of the world, dominated it, it promoted its own values and its own, culture, etc., etc. So the rest of the world, growing up under this umbrella, it's not surprising that they have been affected by it. So we have to work with our communities to systematically remove this from the hearts, by bringing people together, having breakfasts together in different people's homes, and helping to bring a greater closeness, and especially for the new Muslims, to look out for them, to try to protect them, from these elements, which can cause them to leave Islam very easily, as quickly as they came.
Just a quick announcement, brothers and sisters in Islam. Now we're going to open the floor for you. You can call us 303. The phone number is shown on the screen right now, 303-500-5101 on the top of the screen. Please give us a call, 303-500-5101. You can actually ask your question live. Dr. Bilal will hear you. Also, you can email your question if you feel more comfortable with that. info@ourcmcc.org. Jazakumullahu khairan. If you can give us a call, inshallah. Malcolm X, Malik Shabazz, a famous Muslim in history of America, not just the history of Islam. He was cultivated also, his upbringing in a very racial culture. When he went to Hajj, he made that statement, Islam offers solution to the subject, to the issue of race. I do have a caller, Dr. Bilal, if you allow me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Abdul Qadir from Missouri.
Brother Abdul Qadir, can you speak up, please? Brother Abdul Qadir from St. Louis, Missouri. Wa alaikum assalam. Do you have a question for Dr. Bilal Philips, Brother Abdul Qadir?
Yes, I do. My question is this: in the times of Fitna, the best thing to do is for a Muslim to get involved in things that are not clear, or take these affairs to the scholars, wait with sabr until the answers come back, and then continue with speech or whatever else.
Brother Abdul Qadir, can you identify the nature of the fitna here? What the fitna of George Floyd, for example?
This particular one, the racial one, because
okay.
This involves demonstration, riots.
Got you. Jazakallah khair, Brother Abdul Qadir. Clear.
Yeah.
Clear. Barakallah fi. Dr. Bilal, he's asking, we know that the hadith in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam regarding the fitna, the one who's sitting is better than the one who's standing, the one who's standing is better than the one who's walking, riding. So is it better in a situation like this to go and protest and get involved and try to make a change, or is it better to, would that be considered a context of this hadith?
Well, I would say that, historically, whenever circumstances arose of this nature, there were some who chose to stay back and stay away, while there were others who chose to be involved, trying to command the good and prohibit the evil to the degree that they could. So, as I would not blame anybody who didn't take part, who said, I prefer to just stay in my home. We got COVID-19, that's enough, that's enough to deal with, and we empathize and sympathize, and we'll just do it from home. That's quite legitimate option. But for those who choose also to engage themselves, and of course, it needs to be with, of course, proper Islamic decorum. That it's done in the way which we know is pleasing to Allah, not a way which is displeasing to Allah. But to have ourselves present, to have our presence felt, is also important, because otherwise we are the minority in America who becomes the target when they're finished with the other targets. They always come back to us. So, if we expect the others to come and help us when we come under attack,
we should
and
go
then
and
we don't want to get involved, then, you see, so it's like something you have to weigh, the benefits and the harm. If you see the harm becomes greater than the benefit, then of course you avoid it. But if you see that there is a potential benefit there, it's an opportunity for da'wah, it's an opportunity to give the Islamic voice, to have it present, that people can hear, because, we are the ones that have been the brunt of, these last 4 years of, Trump's rule. We're the ones that have suffered the most.
Yeah.
So,
Dr. Bilal, in that context, a lot of the people criticize us as imams, as community leaders. Oh, guys, when there is something happening in Burma, in the Rohingya, in Palestine, in Pakistan, in Kashmir, we hardly hear you. But you only speak up when there is, something that of that nature. Why you don't talk about your larger Muslim community? Basically, they are rebuking us for participating in stopping injustice locally when we are not engaged universally in our larger community. How do we respond to that, or is that a valid argument?
Well, of course, I can't speak for everybody, the reality is that supporting what is distant is always going to be much more difficult than supporting what is immediate and in your presence. Your sphere of influence. What can you do in America to change the situation in Palestine and Burma? Myanmar. Virtually nothing. Your voice is like, a voice in the darkness. Nobody hears it. It's finished. Whereas in your immediate circumstance, where you say something over a bullhorn or whatever, people hear you. There is change and an effect that can take place. So it's natural that we're going to be more active and be more involved when we're dealing with issues that are right in our face.
Dr. Bilal, kindly hold your thoughts. Caller, you're live. Assalamu alaikum. Caller. Assalamu alaikum. Name, state, and question, please. Where are you calling from, please?
My name is Benazir Pacha, and I'm calling from New Jersey, Cherry Hill.
Okay.
I want to know, I'm sure you guys know that our very big imam got killed by America, by Trump, Niazi, last week or 2 weeks ago. And America been in our country for so many years, and they're killing all these big imams. I never see any of you guys talk about that. All he said was, America is dead. America is dead. And they blow him in the masjid.
Okay.
The next day.
Got you, Sister Benazir.
So I would really...
Go ahead.
And I just want to make sure that you guys are safe. I love your show. I love all the people you bring to talk. But please be safe, because Trump does not love anybody that says that, talking about him or his presidency.
Clear.
So
Jazakallah khairan.
I would love to hear hear something about Afghanistan.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Benazir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jazakallah khairan. Allah reward you. Again, it's the same argument, but she pointed out one particular, that actually the killing of one. Again, you know, I think I voice. I come in. You know, your answer is profound. That what can we do from here? But you know, if you want to comment on Sister Benazir point, did you hear her, Dr. Bilal?
Well, I heard in general what you were saying, you know, but of course, whenever, you know, Muslims suffer anywhere in the world, you know, we are supposed to be like one body, you know, where whenever there's suffering anywhere, we all feel sympathy, empathy for it. And something should be said, but realistically speaking, marching in the streets of America for what's happening in Afghanistan, Afghanistan because, you know, Americans are directly involved, but in Myanmar, as I said, you know, or, you know, other places where, you know, people from America are not directly involved. It is halfway around the world. Marching in the streets in America will do very little, you know. Organizing and going to the embassies of these countries, etc., you know, to stay or to do something. There's no harm. This is legal protests, etc. And where we can do something, then something should be done, inshallah.
Dr. Bilal, a very controversial issue now in America. You have hinted in, I think, a couple of minutes ago that we need to come in support of oppressed minority groups living in the West, because it's going to be our turn soon, and you want them to help you as well. We have certain groups, without, you know, naming, how far can we go supporting groups which we do not agree with their ideology, and I hope you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. So
we have our limits.
We have
our limits. You know, yeah. You know, if a group, say you have a religion, for example, in America, it's called the Church of Satan. Okay, you may not know about it, but it does exist. They have a Satan's Bible and everything, you know. So if the Church of Satan, you know, calls for support, you know, for people to rally with them, we have to say, hey, you know, sorry, we can't join this one, you know. Regardless of what they're doing to you, sorry, we can't be a part of that, because of what you stand for is so contrary to what we believe in. So, you know, everybody is going to have their limits, and we have to operate within the limits which the Sharia, you know, accept.
Jazakallah khairan. Okay, we go back to the subject of race. Before the questioners, the callers, Malcolm X, what can we do as a Muslim community to help race and as Muslims in America here? What can we do to be elements of change?
Well, it depends on the positions that we're in. I mean, those people who are in positions of government, you know, senators or whatever, obviously they're able to affect greater influence than the people who are the average, you know, Muslim who has no political influence. But we can write articles, we can, you know, get on talk shows. There's a lot of room for input from our side. But of course, again, the media, you know, is most responsive and accepting when it's, you know, controversial issues that they can sell newspapers with or get viewers on their TVs, programs, etc. So we have to understand the nature, of the situation. But there is a lot that we can say and do. And within the context of da'wah, it becomes our means of da'wah, because when we address these matters, we should be addressing it from an Islamic perspective. Islam should come in there somewhere, somehow. It shouldn't just be that particular issue and nothing of Islam is mentioned. So our presence should be a Muslim presence, where it is appropriate.
We have a questioner. Should there be specific effort to address racism in masjids, or should each individual find comfort from the Quran and the Sunnah? Again, I think he's repeating the question that I asked you a minute ago, that which you...
The masjids should take part. The masjids. They are the leadership of the community. Mm-hmm. So they should set the tone and the approach. Whether it is regular khutbahs in which issues that involve race are raised, or whether it is programs, like when in Toronto, as I said, the brothers every Sunday morning, when people were able to, after Fajr, have breakfast in the masjid together, all the brothers would come, sit down, and bring up whatever issues that are there, allow people to meet each other, build relationships. So there should be, facilitating such gatherings in which Muslims can get to meet each other and get to know each other. Because of course, the issues of racism, as you mentioned in the beginning, is not just in the outer community. Although it is forbidden in Islam, and the Prophet ﷺ attacked it, full on, straight on. He attacked it. Da'ha fa'innaha muntina. Drop it because it is rotten. Right. It is diseased. So the Prophet ﷺ was very clear about it, and he himself, broke those mores by, taking a wife from Egypt, and marrying Sophia from Jewish background, and he broke the clanism and the tribalism by his own actions. So we should be reminding each other of it, and this is what I told the community actually there in Toronto, that really we should make an effort to have our children, those of you that are coming, you're on the front line of the masjid. Every Fajr you're there, Alhamdulillah. You're there for our gatherings on the Sundays, whatever. Now you brothers, who better to marry your daughter or to marry your son to? Now, you're caught up in a thing where your brother or your sister or somebody, your relative, wants you to marry their children, and this has been the tradition, this intermarrying within families, to the point where, people are suffering from genetical issues. So, we need to break that clanism, that we are family, we just marry, our cousins. That's who we marry. You don't marry outside of your cousins. No, we need to break that. Who do you want? This is the man who's standing next to you at Fajr every day. He fears Allah. Can you believe that his son or his daughter fears Allah like him? Then this is the one you should want your son or daughter to marry. And we have to think like this to overcome this clanism and cultural, nationalism that exists amongst us. We have to take practical steps.
Absolutely. Very, very well. Dr. Bilal, an issue here that I need to explain it to you, and I'm sure you relate to it. When situations like these occur, we have different campaigns to face or to stop the injustice. one of the campaigns which we have now, and it's promoted, Black Lives Matter. That slogan, then you find these brothers coming in with that, they just pick, what is that? What that is not this, all lives matter, Um, let's broaden this, and I think you mentioned the example that we may bring up our race or our language or our color in a positive way, like you mentioned the breakfast. The national, you bring in your African food, I bring in my Egyptian food. That's okay. Your Pakistani food, that's fine. It is like the Prophet ﷺ, when he wanted his companions to dig the trench, he actually broke them up into immigrants, muhajirin, ansar, and we know that issue of Salman, where does he fall into? But yet, when it came to dividing us, like the example you mentioned, he said, "Da'uha فإنها muntina." So how can we strike a balance between these slogans out there, like Black Lives Matters, only Black lives, and where is the ground here? Where is the boundary? I hope you understand my point.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, in this particular instance, as you said, all lives matter. And that's what Islam is about. It's about all lives, all human beings matter. But in this instance, we have a particular problem in America, where Black lives don't matter. All other lives do matter, but if a Black life is lost, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter. So because of that, by emphasizing Black Lives Matter, you're trying to deal with a particular problem. It doesn't mean that when they say, or if I say, Black Lives Matter, it means that white lives don't matter. It doesn't go to the opposite. It just means that at this moment in time, the problem has reached a level where the country is in flames. And though it is not something which Islam supports, looting, burning, and all these other kinds of things, nor, Western society in general, of course, they look at this as all, it's bad, it's destructive, it's whatever, all of that is true. But at the same time, America doesn't seem to respond except to circumstances like this.
Right.
When the cities were burning in the 60s, New York, Chicago, Washington, all the big cities across the country were on fire. At that point in time, then change occurred. Up until then, people had been, marching, Martin Luther King assassinated, this one, left and right, dogs set on them, all kinds of things were happening. When that happened, then they said, we got to correct it. We have to fix it. So it's the same thing now, the country, and now because of the media, it's gone even up to Canada, it's gone to the UK, it's gone into, into Europe, into France and Germany, and across the world. Of course, in Africa, it's there already. But, so it's spread all over because of media. It's not that the problem is a new problem. It's just the media has now made it bigger and blown it up. But the reality is that, unfortunately, America does not respond until it reaches this stage. This is what it takes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. We don't like it. It is not something healthy, etc. But the system, until it's property, because you see, this is the point. This is a materialistic society.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking problems, we can talk problems from now until kingdom come, as they say. The end of the world. But now, when you start burning my property, I'm starting to lose financially. We've got COVID-19 and all the problems that have come from that already. And also you're burning down our shops and our this, then that is going to make people say, we need to correct this. We need to fix this. I mean, look what happened in terms of, the officer, how long it took. Though it was supposed to be a short time, it took before that white officer was arrested. And the initial charge was third-degree manslaughter. It wasn't until, more rioting and demonstrations and things happened that finally, okay, no, we need to get a black prosecutor. Black prosecutor upgrades this charge to second-degree murder, and the other three bring them in also. Unfortunately, that is how the country responds. And until they respond differently, then this is going to repeat itself again.
Dr. Bilal, one of the, I think the Minneapolis or Minnesota, I'm trying to remember my brother, he's a Muslim attorney general. I don't remember his name. He's a Muslim, a revert. The subject of voting, a big issue here, and what is your take on voting, living in the United States? Again, I'm not talking about the Muslim world. I'm talking about a minority group living here in the U.S. and this is one way to bring in the right people who understand. You see, that's the argument of one group. But in the other hand, who understand our position and our issues. But on the other hand, you're legislating, in al-hukmu illa lillah. No one, we don't need to explain it. Please help us out. We know we're bringing you for the tough stuff, and that's why we have you here today.
Well, my position on this, is based on, from what I've understood and from what I understood from the lectures of Sheikh Nasruddin Albani. I used to sit in his classes in the Medina. And, he defended that concept of preventing the greater evil. You prevent the greater evil. If you don't vote and the greater evil comes, you can only blame yourself. If you vote in order to prevent that greater evil, that candidate who this guy is anti-Muslim, he's this, he's that, and the other. If he wins, he's going to make your life hell. And you don't vote to try to stop him from coming, then you cannot blame anyone but yourself. If he comes and he does what you expected him to do you. So I'm in favor of voting where there is an issue of greater and lesser evil, as far as we can determine. If there's no greater or lesser evil, etc., then we don't need to get ourselves involved in that.
But here we have a problem with this, Dr. Bilal, that the people who promote this approach, which is, like you mentioned, justified, they consider the others who do not participate completely wrong, and they should be removed from the equation, basically. That they still have a valid ground that they don't want to participate in bringing in legislation other than the hukmullah, the legislation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it fair also to leave them alone if they don't want to do it then? Or
well, of course, we're in a situation of choice. But I would say to those brothers, brother, what are you doing in America? What are you doing there? If you are not prepared to take the steps necessary to ensure your survival as a Muslim community, then it is better for you to be in a Muslim country. You can go to another Muslim country, for example, the Gambia. I spent some time in the Gambia. This is 95% Muslim. You can go there if you vote, you're voting for a Muslim ruler. The Sharia is implemented; it's on the books there. You can go somewhere else. Then it's better for you there.
Dr. Bilal, if you hold your thoughts. Wa alaikum assalam. Name, state, and question, please.
This is Brother Attila from Toronto, Canada.
Brother Attila from Toronto, Canada. You have a question for Dr. Bilal?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
It's regarding Dawah.
Okay.
Here in Toronto, we have a great festival for the...
Somehow we got disconnected, Brother Attila. Please give us a call back, inshallah. Go ahead, Dr. Bilal. I'm sorry, we lost Brother Attila from Toronto, Canada. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying that, of course we have to respect the right of Muslims to choose what they feel is most correct for them. And that's what Allah is going to ask them about. Because if in their heart of hearts they felt that, that this is in fact an act of disbelief or corruption, or, whatever, dhulm, if they felt that in their heart, then of course they have to follow their heart. Because that's what Allah is going to ask them about. So we have to respect them making that choice. But I'm just saying, as I would give them advice, brother, you want to live in a community where you can contribute completely or to the maximum degree, then it's better to be in a Muslim land. That's what I would say. Hijrah. لا تنقطع الهجرة حتى تنقطع التوبة. Hijrah will not end until Tawbah, repentance, ends. And Tawbah doesn't end until the sun rises in the west. This is what the Prophet ﷺ told us. So we have to think this thing out properly. If we're serious, then be about supporting, because Muslim countries with the skills that Americans have, Muslims in America have, the skills that they have, that they've gained because of education, etc., etc. It could be of great benefit to Muslim countries.
No.
So my advice is, brother, go and help your Muslim brothers where you can do everything to the maximum. Mm-hmm. This is my advice. But at the same time, I respect their right to not participate, etc. But also they should respect the right of those who feel that given the circumstances, this is a legitimate choice.
Jazakallah khair. Dr. Bilal, can we still have like another 20 minutes. The subject of hudud, and that's actually how we announced and advertised our event today. Islam came to protect 5 necessities, the religion to begin with, then the human, the sanctity of the human life, and this is just the Muslim human, but the human, and that's where George Floyd is. Basically, if this officer would have known in the depth of his heart the retribution of his act, I think he would have thought about it. But because of the man-made laws and, like you mentioned, because of the pressure they got him from 3rd degree to 1st degree, and and what is your take? Is it the proper time now to represent the word Sharia, hudud, again to America? That's what is your take on this?
No, but that conversation is better in the Masjid amongst Muslims.
Okay.
Conversation. They already banned Sharia in 21, I think, or full states, without the people even knowing what Sharia means, Yeah. So, we don't need to get into that conversation. But there's no doubt, it's clear, that where the Sharia is implemented, where it is strong, then the likelihood of such acts become small.
No.
So its application becomes few and far in between. So there's no doubt that it is superior, but it can only be acceptable in a country or in a society or a community that everybody or the majority of people agree, where they can actually make law. But if we are not in a situation where we can make law, etc., then we have to function under the existing laws within the society and avoid breaking them as much as possible.
I'm going to come to this question again and again. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here. You're far away, you're in Addis Ababa. You know, I'm here in the middle of America. I'm in Denver, Colorado. The issue of slavery and Islam position, a lot of people don't realize that when Islam came, slavery was in existence. And Islam, in a way, offered the way out of it. But they don't realize, basically they expected Islam to come in and say, okay, no more slavery, everyone is free. They don't understand that those people who own those individuals, even though we don't condone that, they paid money. They actually, so they must release them also in a way that they don't lose their because we have two approaches here. No, Islam doesn't talk about race, slavery, Islam, no. But if you look at the text, you cannot deny that slavery yet continued a while after, but it offered the way out of that. Where do we balance our approach here in America as imams regarding this subject? You know, you don't want to look like you pro-slavery, and at the same time, you don't want to compromise the religion. So, please.
Well, I would say that you mentioned that when Islam came in its final form, slavery already existed in Arabia. I would say slavery existed everywhere in the world. You can't find a society that didn't have slaves. It was something which existed from Allah knows when. So this is reality of the world. Slavery exists. So what happened in the country where they banned slavery altogether? Okay, slavery has been cancelled, forbidden in America, UK, Europe, the countries that were the main slavery, promoting and built themselves on slavery. They canceled it altogether. But guess what? Slavery today is far more in these countries than it ever was. Go back 400 years ago, and you compare it till today, the number of people who are enslaved around the world is far more, many times more than those who existed at that time. So slavery has not been eradicated. Yeah, on the books, they put it on the book. Yes, it is forbidden, it's illegal, it is this and that, but it is still going on. All the countries, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, everywhere, it's still going on. So what Islam did is that it set rules for slavery that basically turned what was originally a slave into what they call an indentured laborer. He's stuck with you. You're stuck with him. Okay? But he's working for you. You provide his food, you provide his clothing, you provide social. You're not allowed to make him work more than he can handle, overburden him and all these other. You're not allowed to, slap him, beat him, cut off his ear, cut off his nose, do anything. No, all of that has been banned completely. Okay? So eventually the slavery would diminish and diminish until it no longer had place in the society because of the system that was there to minimize it. And with the government, zakah, and other institutions in the Islamic system for, when a person wants to pay penance for doing this or that, they free a slave. You know, so many
وفي
cases they
الرقاب.
kill somebody.
Yeah.
With riqab. So all of that is there. So we know that the systems were there to decrease it gradually.
And the expiation for the sins, different sins. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
So this is the point. So this is why it is not surprising in Islamic history, you know, that people who were slaves became, or sons of slaves that became rulers. They became leading scholars. They fulfilled all of the different positions which were open to people who were free. So we can see this reality. But of course, whenever societies stray from Islam, then those institutions can become corrupted. And the rise of the evil form will take place. So this is, the more of Islam that is there, the less. The less of Islam, the more. I mean, that's just how life works. And this remains as an option for prisoners of war in times of war to help to absorb them into the society. And this is what it did. All the places that Muslims conquered, etc., they ended up becoming one with the people there. They intermarried and all these different things took place. And that's how Islam had moved forward. So the reality, as you said, is that Islam did not prohibit slavery outright. It didn't. Neither would you find it in Christianity. It is not in any of the texts of the Torah that are supposed to be the Torah or whatever, or Injil that was supposed to be Injil, but we know they really aren't. But in any case, the point is that it doesn't exist. So, because this is a reality that societies have lived with from time immemorial.
Alhamdulillah.
But each one has a responsibility. And it is the Muslim society's duty to look after all levels of the society. And that's why Muslims were able to function even with the existence of slavery on a low level within the societies. But they didn't turn it into enslaving nations and building themselves on those enslaved nations. It never took that form. That form was European slavery.
Dr. Bilal, recently in that video we saw 4 officers. One of them did the actual murder of George Floyd, but the 3 were standing. And we know that Islam promotes انصر أخاك ظالما أو مظلوما. Aid your brother whether he is an oppressed or whether he is an oppressor.
Well, it doesn't support that. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said, and the Sahaba said, we understand aiding him when he's being oppressed. But what if he's the oppressor? The Prophet ﷺ said you're supposed to stop him.
Right. So these 3 officers did not do anything, but lately I just found out yesterday that they were charged. So some people find this, there are a lot of talk. They didn't do anything. Why did you charge them? Again, but this is an Islamic principle that you were there. You should have done something about it, and you didn't do it, right?
And it's even in Western law, even in the law of the country, of the U.S., that as a policeman, if your colleague is doing something against the law, then you are supposed to stop him. You're supposed to intervene. One of them was a Filipino. One of the 4 was a Filipino, and they focused on him because, of course, he must have suffered what he suffered, as a minority brown person from, another part of the world. He must have suffered also. But, the pressure on him in terms of, not supporting, because, as I said, they support each other. When somebody is doing wrong, rather than stopping him, they rally with him, and he doesn't want to feel left out, so maybe he just stood back. But actually, there were other pictures of the three where it had all four of them with their knees on him. So they didn't just stand the whole time. There were some shots which were taken from the other side of the vehicle, which showed them also with their knees on him. So they participated. It wasn't just standing.
So International Open University now is Islamic Online University is now International Open University. But if you Google International Islamic Open University, you still get both domains up there, right?
They're linked, yes.
Because a lot of people are familiar with the Islamic Open University, and I had a short conversation before the show with you regarding some of the works you're doing in the financial. We really need that. People want to own their homes and usury and all of that, Islamic banking, and can you update us on what is happening there, please?
Well, what we have sort of initiated here in Addis Ababa for Ethiopia is an Islamic Institute for Islamic banking and finance. It's not an institute meaning it's a bank of some sorts. It's an academic institute. So we're training bachelor's degrees in Islamic banking and finance, masters as well as PhDs. We're trying to establish it here in Ethiopia because Ethiopia a year ago opened up the country to Islamic banking for the first time in their history. So alhamdulillah, there's a big need, a big surge for this. We want to be in the forefront. There are no schools teaching Islamic banking and finance in the country at all. So normally they're sending their students overseas to Malaysia, etc., or to London, or to Egypt to study Islamic banking. So alhamdulillah, because this country has close to 50 odd million people, Muslims, 50 odd million Muslims. Total population is over 100 million. So the population of Muslims is sufficient that we should establish an institution here which can serve the continent, because we have a huge population here, over 1 billion people, 1.4 billion people, and the need is rising, increasing. The number of institutions are coming up. They don't have the kind of restrictions that you find in America, which makes it very difficult. But you all in America should keep working on it, pushing.
Yes.
Because England did it. The UK, which is the father of America, they were able to do it in spite of all the issues.
Unfortunately, Dr. Bilal, in England and these parts of the world, the people kept up to the principles of Islam that let's find an Islamic solution for the problem. But over here in America, we get these jurists who come in, just go ahead and buy your house, mortgage, it's okay, it's permissible, it's a necessity, and they just compromise. Then the people feel there is no need to come up. I always use this example of halal, dhabiha meat according to the Hanafi school of thought, and the other school of thoughts like Shafi'i, they are very lenient on this. But the Hanafi, that's why we have all these halal stores, because of these Indian, Pakistani brothers who really believed in, in the fact that they must eat dhabiha. That's why we came. Likewise here in America, unfortunately, we have all these institutions that offer not really Islamic. It's a fake kind of Islamic, and that's the problem that we have here, unfortunately.
Inshallah, Allah make it easy for you, and inshallah, I think as people become more and more aware of the options and they see the rise of Islamic banking. You have in Harvard University, you have a chair for Islamic finance.
No.
What do you need after that? Really? It should be there. It should be functional in the country.
Inshallah, it's always pleasure, Dr. Philips. Wallahi, I enjoy being with you. I wish I can, inshallah, soon join you. And Jazakallah khair for your hospitality when I spent 3 days, I think, in Qatar, in Doha, in your house. May Allah reward you, Rabbil Alameen. And may Allah give you Jannah, and may Allah protect you, Dr. Bilal, so you can, education, I believe is the way to go, and you have taken that mission of educating the Muslim community about Islam, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of this in your scale in the day of judgment, and all of those who are helping your institution, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You want to give us final advice, to the viewers? We have a lot of people watching, and a lot of people will watch this during this COVID-19, then the George Floyd protest, then the looting, and just a general advice for us as Muslims, keeping the faith, and one final advice from you to me personally and to the rest of the congregation here, inshallah.
Well, I would just say that, of course, the key is taqwa.
No.
This is what is obviously going to save us ultimately. That we implement, we grow in taqwa by keeping Allah always in our conversations, in our plans, in our businesses, in our whole life. That we keep Allah there in the conversation. That this is the only way forward. The more we're able to do that, the more we're able to have like thinking, and we'll be prepared to make the kind of sacrifices necessary in order to establish Islam there in the West. And I do feel that the issue of hijrah is still a valid principle that, from way back in the, I did a lecture in New York in Masjid called The Obligation of Hijrah back in 1990.
The three institutions. You have to build 3 institutions for you to stay where you are. I remember this.
Inshallah, mashallah. So the point, I won't be going into the details of it, but the bottom line is that, we need to establish, we need to be in communities. Because living, as I used to call it, little house on the prairie Islam. There's a show which used to be on television about a little house on the prairie which was isolated from everybody. We can't live like that. As Muslims, we are a community. Islam is a religion and a community. And the only way to do it is for us to come together. So even if you are in Colorado, the Muslims of Colorado should be around the masjid. The masjid should be surrounded by Muslim families. So that anytime anything happens in America which, involves Muslims and the Americans get angry and they come rushing, they will think twice before running in to try to burn down our masjid.
No.
Or break the windows, etc. But because we end up putting the masjid in one place and we are living all over the place, anything that happens, windows are broken, paint is put on there, pigs' heads are thrown inside the doors, all kinds of things happen to us. Because we don't have the masjid at the heart of the community. It should be the heart of the community. And we surround and we protect it as it protects us. That I think that people need to rethink this, and to try to bring the community together, and so that we can better live Islamic lives within the context of North America.
Jazakallah khairan. Just to remind the question that Dr. Bilal presented in this particular lecture, should I do hijrah? Which is a question that you guys ask us all the time. He said, as long as you establish these 3 functioning institutions where you live, you can stay. He mentioned the family, the Muslim home, he mentioned the masjid, and then the education, the Islamic school. I remember that very well. Dr. Bilal, it's always a pleasure. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah give you Jannah. May Allah protect you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And please stay safe and keep me in your dua as well. And we ask Allah to unite us all on the righteousness and the piety. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you and bring you hopefully one day to America, inshallah, so that you can visit us here, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
Inshallah, may Allah bless you and bless your community.
Ameen.
And all the people who are viewing, following this program, we ask Allah to strengthen your faith, strengthen your practice, and inshallah, keep us all together working for the sake of Islam. And may Allah allow us to die, inshallah, true Muslims. Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters in Islam. In your behalf, I want to thank Dr. Bilal Philips for being there with us today. It's quite late there, so Jazahullahu khairan. Allah give him Jannah Rabbil Alameen.